Lan, given your perceptions of the future of this career field, what advice do you have for students as they position themselves to be successful as they move forward?
I really have a lot to thank for Middlebury because, if I look back on my education, the things that really I took with me that continue to benefit me in today's technology world, no matter how technology changes. But some of the evergreen things that I have learned that was super helpful was actually through my liberal arts education. So, I'll give you a couple examples. One of the things I've learned is, I think, it sounds basic, but it's actually pretty important. It's critical thinking, right? As in the product management community, we have this saying that says, as product managers, we all need to have strong opinions, but weakly held, right? It is not about what you believe. It's a lot of time is about the differences in opinions and how do you really be open-minded about why people coming from this angle that I have never thought about, and have that intellectual curiosity and the inquisitive skills to really try to understand the context behind everybody's opinion, different perspectives. And it takes a level of critical thinking to do that, because in the technology space, the one thing that you don't lack of is a lot of people with big egos and think that they know what they're doing. So in those world, you gotta have to be able to pierce through the ego and communicate with people on the basis of the merit of their opinions and the data behind it, the sort of ideas behind it. I think the other thing, skills that I found super valuable for me was ability to synthesize complexity, right? Because we're in a world where it's always a confluence of technology, human problems at macro and micro level. And so, even the simplest thing that you think it's a feature we want to develop can get quite complex when you start thinking about, like, I'm trying to solve a problem and deliver a product that literally needs to serve 5 generations of people in workplace. This is, our audience, by the way. Like we serve 5 generations in workplace. So any kind of even what appears to be simple problem could be quite complex when you try to ensure you have that. We try to make such a diverse audience happy, and so the ability to synthesize complexity becomes super important, because you got to know how to do that in a crystal clear way, and you have to figure out how to do storytelling, right? Because if you're not careful, then you can just overwhelm, whether if it's your customer or your team, with those complexity. Engineers has a tendency to think about complexity, and I used to tell people, like, you cannot do linear storytelling based on your brain cycle. You're gonna walk down a decision tree and say, here's all the 5 conditions, if then else, and coming out of it and say, here's my solution. You cannot do that in our world. You have to do reverse storytelling. You have to do nonlinear, cut to the chase on a good state you want to be, and tell people, here's how we get there. But those are the techniques that I found my liberal arts education being super helpful. Communication, another thing that I would say that's the hardest part. I still, every day I feel like I have to play this role, trying to help this part of the organization, that part of the organization, this individual, that individual. We used to say, you guys are talking in different channels. It literally 2 people with very good, well-intentioned. And when I look at them partner trying to do something together, a lot of time you were like, well, you guys are trying to solve the problem, but you guys keep talking past each other. I don't understand why you don't see that. You should see it. And then, so that, ability to be able to really help people of very diverse background to quickly align. I think, Jeff, you also asked me about specific skill set, right? I think, I talked about some of these sort of we call soft skills, but that alone is not enough for the tech industry, right? I think, the best way I would describe it is, you kind of need to mix up both left brain and right brain skills, right? And, being able to, you don't necessarily need to have exact right mix, but, you have the ability to navigate between the two becomes super important, right? Whether if you are in our industry, there's lots of disciplines, right? You can have legal, you can have marketing, product marketing. It's not just the people who write code. Product manager is, I have a lot of product managers that came from non-tech background, right? They have like literature, psychology, religion, you name it, like lots of liberal arts educated background as well. But the common thread is you need to have a propensity and also curiosity about technology. And the more you understand them, the better. It will make you sort of, being able to collaborate with other people, sort of like tune into other people's same channel a lot easier. I think computer science is not necessary, but if you do computer science, then that definitely opens the door for more sort of professional choices around being an engineer. But like I said, there's plenty of other disciplines that people have been able to thrive without a computer science background. Like product management is a good example, right? Like I said, I've got product managers and leaders, right, who are in the discipline of product management that didn't have computer science background, because the heart of product management, and there are different kind of product, right? If you work on, say, like something like Azure, which is a lot about developer, is your customer, then I would say it's very technical. Like you have to understand how developer works. But there are the type of product like our product, it's really about serving end user. And boy, I want to make our product to be able to usable by 6-year-olds. It was a pain to see how little kids struggle with using our software, but like we're very customer user facing product, and that the ability to understand human and have empathy to their problems and understand how to connect the technology to those human problems. Again, it needs a decent understanding of technology, but if you have the education, if you have the intuition, you can do it. And it's very impactful, I would say, because in the software world, we've seen a lot of the sort of both ways, right? Problem looking for technology to solve, or technology looking for a problem. I would say, the early days of Microsoft, a lot of it was about technology looking for a problem, actually, right? Because we have a lot of very highly technical leaders that are the spearheading, and pushing the boundary of the technology, which turns out solve a lot of user problem. And over the years, as we learned to, how to work with, say, getting into consumer space, like, Xbox or Bing, those type of products really helped us to understand, oh, wow, like there are a lot of real world problems that are looking for solution right now. What if we connect this better? So I think it's a healthy tension to have people who are very technologist in nature, always want to push the boundary of the technology, and then have people who are very user-centric, understands human problem, and then can work together to connect those two sort of space and creating some hopefully magic, right? Sometimes we actually ended up creating complexity, but the quest is always creating magic. And then the other, I think also type of role that we have in the product team in the engineering side is technical program management, or some people sometimes think about project management, and this is about how to take a somewhat defined product vision or product scope. Sometimes we call it MVP, most valuable product, sort of initial definition of the product. Work with a lot of the constituencies like engineering team, like your operation team, your support team. In big companies, these are all different disciplines. Work with the various downstream constituencies to create an execution plan together and bring that product to market. So there are disciplines that specializes in that. In some companies like Amazon, they call it technical PM, right? But in some companies, in Microsoft, we have program management that specializes in this type of role. And it's also super important, right? Because I used to say ideas are cheap and the hard part is execution, because you can see there's like ton of innovations in this space, ton of ideas. Lots of them didn't stick, and it'll just like, come and go, come and go. The thing that's really can stick and usually take really excellent execution to know how to get something first to the market, get the right product market fit, iterate and grow and become a thing. And that any company, with that execution muscle will end up prevail. So I think that role is also super, super important and very interesting, even for someone without, necessarily a computer science background. And then we also have a lot of growing opportunities on the topic of AI, right? AI is very interesting technology challenge, but also opportunity, I would say, but also an interesting ethics problem, right? How do we think about developing AI in a responsible way that is sort of in tune with the readiness and standards development of the society and government? We call it responsible AI. And there's just a ton of ethics implications to what we choose to do and not to do. So we actually have people specialized in that, right? AI and ethics. Some, is in legal, some it's in product management. But it is an area that I would say, we as an industry see the need, whether if it's from regulation or from standard, we have to get ahead of the technology here. Product marketing is another big area, right? How we're building product, but there's a big gap between, building a software product to how do you get that product in the hands of everyday users, and what do you tell them what this is? How do you sell them? And, how do you get them to understand if they have all these other alternatives in the market? And if they already have some established habit, how do you get them to change the habit? So there's a bunch of sort of product marketing needs there as well, in terms of how to take a product. We call it go to market, right? GTM, take a product from, sort of its birth to, actually get it to the hands of the consumer. Even though it's software, it actually is not that easy. It's not just about bits distribution. It is about getting the message to, the people at large, so that they will listen, they hear, and that's a science and art of itself.
What are some of the challenges or advice that you would have for women in the tech industry from a career perspective?
Yeah, it's a topic near and dear to my heart. So I think it's kind of twofold. One is, for people like me who's sort of been there, done that, and I would say anybody who's been there, done that, even just, no matter how long the experience is, just instantly realize that you're in a position of power relative to other women, because there's so few of us in this industry. And it really needs a two-way pull, right? You need people who, who are motivated, want to get into the industry, but you also want people who are already in the industry to pull people in, because it's not something that will just organically happen. There's so much systemic biases and resistance, right? So you kind of need to be really proactive about outreach, about the message. Again, I want to thank my Middlebury education. I came to the United States knowing nobody. I was not a native speaker. I don't have any relatives here. I just dropped right into Middlebury. And so I've kind of been this outsider coming to inside and trying to figure out how to adapt. And once I went through that journey, then going to the tech industry, I felt like, okay, it's new, but like, what more can I lose? It can't be any worse than, uplift yourself from a different country and moving here. If you have those skills, communication skills, storytelling skills, ability to connect with people, you will be able to come here and find a voice and find value in this space, in whatever. And I know we need it. So have that sort of confidence and, just be psychologically prepared. You will be able to find a space for yourself and come in, keep your eyes wide open, and just have that intellectual curiosity, be ready to learn. Play it to your strength, right? I used to have this hot star tree model with my team, or I mentored a lot of people along the way in my career. I love this model, hot star tree. You always know what's your heart, what you love to do. What star is what you're good at, tree is where you want to grow. And that's dynamic, right? At any stage of a career that may change, but always know what you want, like what's your hot star tree, and formulate a career growth strategy based on that. So I think having that dialogue with yourself, but also with people who are mentor or your manager, right? Or, whoever that you trust with in your career is important, because if anything, it helps you to be prepared for change. And it helps you to understand the kind of trade-offs that you're willing to make when changes are coming.
We've been speaking with Lan Ye, Corporate Vice President for Microsoft Teams. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jeff. This is a pleasure.